Welcome back to my Pokémon Emerald Hardcore Nuzlocke walkthrough. In the last episode, we got our revenge on Watson, defeating him without any casualties whatsoever thanks to our much improved team, strategy, and mindset. We picked up a ton of new encounters as we continue to progress through the game, leveling up our new team along the way to the 4th gym. And finally, we took out Maxie and Team Magma on the top of Mount Chimney with relative ease. Honestly, things have been going very smoothly so far, but we can't afford to let our guard down now. Flannery and her Torkoal are going to be a handful. Let's see what our team can do. The road from Gen 3 Casual to Emerald Master continues. Let's do this. After the events on top of Mount Chimney, I head south to Route 112, otherwise known as the Jagged Pass, to take out some trainers and get our next encounter. A Machop is a very nice pickup, and comes just in time for Norman in the 5th gym. Fighting types in general are pretty decent to have in this generation, and they are particularly hard to come by in this game actually, so this is good. I'm not playing with trait evolutions in this walkthrough though, but honestly the difference between Machamp and Machoke isn't too crazy. They're basically the same, with Machamp just having bigger stats and that's it. Both of them can take a few hits, and they both hit really hard. Both get Guts as well, although it's not as crazy on these guys as it is on Swellow because they're pretty slow. Still nice to have though. Finally in Lavaridge town, and what's the first thing we do? Obviously take a few laps around the hot tub of course, and pick up this useless ice heal. Before we move forward with the 4th gym, there's a couple of quick things to take care of. Firstly, I'm boxing Grovyle for this gym as he's not going to be very helpful at any point, and I don't want to risk losing him. He'll be replaced with a second strategic sacrifice, which are very useful on Flannery in particular, with all of those potential overheats going off. Technically, we can get an encounter in this town by getting an egg from the old lady on the beach, but we are rejecting the offer to take it off her hands. For those of you who don't know, the egg hatches into a Wynot, which eventually evolves into a Wobbuffet. I personally ban Wobbuffet from my playthroughs, mostly because I just don't enjoy the playstyle it offers. It just feels kind of cheesy and cheap when used correctly. Like it could win you some battles that maybe you weren't supposed to win, I guess. Just a personal preference, but if you enjoy that playstyle, by all means pick the little guy up. Also be sure to stop by the herbal shop in town and grab the charcoal from the old man inside. Type boosting items are always great, even if fire isn't particularly great in this generation. With all of that out of the way, we finally enter the gym, plow through all the fire breathers, and approach Flannery. But before we enter the battle, let's take a look at our team and go over my choices and my thinking. First up, my Tentacool, who should have no issue tearing up Flannery's Numel, Slugma, and potentially Camerupt even. Although, I believe Bubble Beam is a range on that one. But if we take a look at his moves, you'll notice I've added Thief to his arsenal. This is to potentially steal Torkoal's White Herb from him, which will really help us reduce his power level. Next up we have Azumarill, and Bubble Beam will most likely be what I shoot for in this fight. Rollout has a bigger payoff, but it's just too risky. The biggest strength in Azumarill actually lies in her ability, Thick Fat. While definitely worse than her other ability, Huge Power, Thick Fat is absolutely huge on this fight, allowing us to quad resist fire, turning those overheats into embers basically. Next is Gyarados, and honestly, he's just a really bulky water type, and he's Gyarados. You can't go wrong most of the time with that. And finally, Breloom, who I'm hoping I'll never have to use, but if something goes catastrophically wrong, Breloom should be faster than anything Flannery has, and a single headbutt could save us with how hard this guy hits. And of course, I have 2 strategic sacrifices here, mostly if we get crit by something and are forced to use some clean switches. This is absolutely the fight to strategically sacrifice Pokemon in. Those overheats are no joke. Throwing weak Pokemon at them to safely switch in your better team members is the way to go. Alright, enough talk. Let's do this. I lead with Tentacool of course, who I'm expecting to wipe out the majority of her Pokemon. First up is her Numel, which easily gets taken out with a Bubble Beam. Her Slugma comes out next, although I don't know why. Her Torkoal is much stronger and much more equipped to deal with Tentacool, but I guess it's not a big deal. Another Bubble Beam and Slugma is quickly taken care of. Her Camerupt comes out next, and I knew Bubble Beam was gonna come close to one-shotting it, but it was unlikely. Still, all I had to endure was either a tackle or an overheat. Either one wouldn't have actually done all that much. Actually, now that I'm looking at this, maybe it's a good thing that I wasn't able to one-shot this Camerupt, because now Flannery is just wasting all of her Hyper Potions on it instead of her Torkoal. That's a huge win for us. Speaking of which, her ace finally comes out. I'm not really sure I needed to do this, but I went for a bit of a riskier play here. I knew her Torkoal couldn't take out Tentacool unless she landed a crit, so I decided to risk it and go for the Thief to take away that white herb while I could, just in case. Luckily, it did work out for me, and Tentacool will get to fight another day. With white herb now gone, the rest of this fight should be quite simple, assuming I don't get crit several times in a row. I switched in Azumarill next to see if she could take him out one-on-one. At first, I thought that this might not have been the most optimal move, as it looked like at that point Torkoal was going to avoid overheating and just spam Body Slam for the rest of the fight. And in those cases, maybe switching in Gyarados would have been better, so I can get the Intimidate off to weaken those Body Slams. However, I forgot that this Torkoal has White Smoke as an ability, which prevents his stats from being reduced. So actually, I guess this was an accidental good play. Luckily, none of it mattered, as Azumarill was perfectly capable of taking these Body Slams as well without much of an issue. Without any Hyper Potions to worry about, a few Bubble Beams later, and Torkoal goes down, earning us our 4th badge, and the TM for Overheat as well. Not bad. With how Azumarill was taking those hits, and with Gyarados on deck, I probably didn't need to risk the potential crit on Tentacool there. I'll have to consider those types of scenarios in the future. But for now, things are still running along smoothly. After exiting the gym, we run into Brendan, who gives us the Desert Goggles, which will allow us to pick up another encounter before moving on to the 5th gym. He's a real dick about it for some reason though. I swear, the Gen 3 rival can actually be pretty brutal sometimes. The desert is exactly where we're headed to next, to take out some trainers and pick up that new encounter, and it's only a short walk to the east. This route's music is a fucking jam. Anyone who tells you otherwise is a liar! Time to get our encounter, and it's a Trapinch. Sweet. Very solid encounter. Flygon has great stats, great ability, great typing, gets a ton of coverage, and he's just cool. Never underestimate the cool factor. The only downside is the physical special split, unfortunately. Flygon doesn't learn a lot of physical moves at all in this generation, so he's forced to use his lackluster special attack stat instead most of the time. Still, this is a solid encounter regardless, and we'll definitely consider using him later on. After clearing out the trainers in the desert, which are optional by the way, but if you need the extra experience, it's there are a few items we can pick up here before we move on. We can get the TM for Sandstorm by going to the southernmost part of the desert, and then heading back north we could pick up a Stardust, a Rare Candy, a Protein, and another Stardust. And with all of that out of the way, it's time to do a bit more grinding for Norman. Not too much at least, as his ace is only a couple levels higher than Flandern's. I'll go over the new team once I get to the gym. The best place to grind, by the way, at this point will still be Fiery Path overall, at least in my experience. After another grinding session, we head back to Petalburg City to face our father for the 5th gym badge. If you need help getting back there, just head south from the desert until you get back to Mauville City, head west and take Route 117 until you hit Verdanturf, take Wismer Tunnel and Route 116 back to Rustboro, and then head south, and I'm sure you'll recognize your surroundings by that point. Back in Petalburg, and we are ready to take on the 5th gym. But before we start, a word of caution. Treat every single trainer in this gym like a boss fight. Seriously, some of these rooms are extremely terrifying. In particular, the strength room and the crit room. In fact, you may just want to avoid those rooms altogether if you're able to. The strength room in particular has a Zangoose with Swords Dance and Slash. That thing is bulky, speedy, and will absolutely wipe out your entire team if you do not take it down quickly. Be very careful here. Don't try to fight them all for extra experience, just take the quickest path to Norman. I would suggest the entire right side of the gym, as it seems to be the least dangerous route to get to him. After navigating through the gym trainers, we're ready to take on our dad. Let's take a look at the team. I'm leading with Azumarill to try to take out Spinda. I have to avoid using Breloom or Machoke for this because Spinda actually has Psybeam, which would not be good for our fighting types. I'm not guaranteed to take out the Spinda with one hit though, as I need to hit it 3 times with Bubble Beam, I think, in order to bring it down. Hopefully we don't get screwed by Teeter Dance. Breloom is all about those Mach Punches, and will be very useful against Linoon and hopefully Vigoroth as well. It's a 2-hit KO regardless of which Pokemon comes out. I'm hoping that Linoon actually belly drums as I'm sending Breloom in, because then I can get a free kill essentially without taking any damage. Gyarados has one primary job on this fight, and that's to take one single hit from Norman's slacking. This is so I can switch in Dustox cleanly while Slacking's Truant ability prevents it from moving the turn after. Gyarados is the perfect Pokemon to take a hit with that bulky defense stat, especially considering that Intimidate will also soften the blow even further. Machoke is honestly a backup in case something goes wrong on Linoone or Vigoroth, or if Breloom just can't handle both of them. And last but certainly not least, our Dustox has finally come back to play. Dustox has the most important job of all, taking down Slacking. With the combination of Protect and Poison Sting, Slackings are 100% free. You use Protect when Slacking can attack, and then use Poison Sting during his downturn. Dustox is so underappreciated in these games, and we have our strategic sacrifice as well in Whismur in case something goes very, very wrong. Hopefully it won't get to that point. Alright Dad, let's do this. I lead with Azumarill to try to take out Spinda with Bubble Beams. Unfortunately, as it turns out, Bubble Beam does not take down Spinda in 3 hits like I thought it would, so it took quite a bit of PP and some luck with Teeter Dance to finally bring him down. Luckily, we were able to get through that without having to switch to somebody else. Next up is Vigoroth, and I decided to switch into Breloom on this one. If I could make this choice again though, I would send in Machoke instead to see what he could do. Breloom just took way more damage from Facade than I thought he would take, and I ended up risking a critical hit on Slash in order to finish the fight with Breloom instead of somebody else, so I could avoid taking more damage. That could have ended very badly. His Linoone comes out next, and now things are a little tricky. I didn't expect to be in this awkward position with Breloom right now. Even though a non-critical hit Slash or Facade wouldn't kill me, I can't be taking chances like that again if I can help it. So I switch into Machoke to see if he can maybe get one single hit off. Machoke is much more expendable in my opinion, so I feel like I can take a little bit more risks here. Unfortunately, Linoone lands that crit as Machoke comes in, bringing Machoke's HP way too low to do anything with him. But thank God it wasn't Breloom. This is definitely getting more and more awkward. I decided to use my strategic sacrifice now so I can get a clean switch in of some kind. I was really hoping Linoone would belly drum there, but he didn't. I send in Azumarill next because I believe he could take a hit here. In hindsight, even though I needed Gyarados to take a hit on Slacking, I feel like his bulk was big enough to be able to take one hit from Linoone as well, and maybe that would have been a better move. Not sure though. I go for a Bubble Beam just to get a little bit of chip damage in, but in the process, Linoone finally goes for that belly drum. With +6 attack now, Linoone will easily sweep my entire team. I have only one choice here, and that's to make another sacrifice, so I can cleanly switch in Breloom. And that sacrifice is going to be Machoke. I know he just joined the team, but in my opinion, he's easily the most expendable Pokemon on this team at the moment. Some may argue Azumarill, but I actually need Azumarill at the next gym. More on that later. With our Machoke falling to Linoone, we can now switch in Breloom to get off one last priority Mach Punch to take out the Linoone once and for all. And now it's just Norman's ace Slacking to deal with. Alright Gyarados and Dustox, it's time to shine. Slacking comes in and I immediately switch into Gyarados to get in an Intimidate and tank a Facade. With Slacking now unable to move for a turn, I can cleanly switch in Dustox. And now we use our combo. First Protect, then Poison Sting, then Protect, then Poison Sting, etc. Eventually, Slacking gets poisoned, and now we play the waiting game. In the meantime, I can switch to using Confusion now instead of Poison Sting to deal damage for the rest of the fight, while I continue to use Protect during turns that Slacking can actually attack me. We end up having to use all of our Protect PP basically, but it eventually got the job done. If I ended up running out of Protects and Dustox went down, Slacking would have been at a low enough HP that Breloom should have easily been able to come in and clean up the fight with Mach Punch. Norman finally goes down, earning us our 5th gym badge and the TMs for Facade. And with that, this video is now over. 2 boss fights in 1 episode, not bad. The battle with Flannery worked out perfectly for us, and while the fight with Norman could have been a little cleaner, we made it out of there with only 1 noteworthy death. Machoke will be missed, but at least he wasn't a huge loss in the grand scheme of things. He would have remained as a backup for the remainder of the run anyway. In the next episode, we have our eyes on Winona and the 6th gym. a very notorious fight for any Nuzlocke. I'm looking forward to the challenge, but we've got a lot to do before then. In the meantime, as usual, please like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more content like this. And let me know what other kinds of content you would like to see me do in the future. That's it from me. I'll see you next time.